Are you experiencing back pain that you can't get rid of? Getting migraines, vertigo, having trouble sleeping, and/or brain fog? Do you feel like your medical doctor doesn't understand your condition? Blair Chiropractic might be the solution you've been looking for. If you've ever been skeptical about this, the two doctors you're about to listen to were even more skeptical than you were when they looked into chiropractic work. But fear not. Get expert guidance from the blonde and the bald, Doctors Beth Bagley and Frederick Schurger. These two doctors have extensive experience beyond the healthcare realm and bringing unique vision and healing to their patients. What do you have when you get a biological analyst and an engineer together? Find out right here on another episode of The Blonde and the Bald. Welcome your hosts, Doctors Bagley and Schurger.
Welcome, everyone, to The Blonde and the Bald. If you can't tell the difference, it's because you're listening on your podcast, and that's okay. I'm Dr. Frederick Schurger.
I'm Dr. Beth Bagley, and I am not bald.
No.
Today.
Anyways, we're having a good time. The podcast is getting out there. People are listening, and we appreciate everyone for signing up on the socials. Make sure that you do like, subscribe. Give us
it
a
helps
5-star.
Us so much.
Give us a 5-star review. That's the bits and pieces that get people to hear about these things, because there's so many problems in the world that can be solved with moving a little 2-ounce bone underneath your head. We're going to start off this week with a couple of patient testimonials. Mm-hmm. First, I talked about this one a couple weeks ago where he has been reluctant to come in as a patient for about 5 years that his wife has been coming in. Engineer, very, very mechanical, very methodical, except when it comes to his health, he's like, no, it's fine. I've had fusions. I'm good. I don't need any more. Well, he came in, like I said, about a month ago, 3 or 4 weeks now. It might only be 3 weeks. It might even be 2 weeks, and bent over, ready to get a bunch of steroid shots. And today he comes in, they get here a little bit early because they got to get back home for a class tonight. And while he's here, he gets a call from the hospital saying, we need to reschedule you. You had a 2:00 appointment. It was about 2:30 when they walked into my door. And this was for the shots. And his wife was like, you're not going to get those shots. He's like, I don't think so. I don't think so. And of course, he was holding his adjustment. He's like, yeah, feeling pretty good, doing the exercises that I'm supposed to be doing. And I'm not saying that there's not a time and place for steroid shots. There is.
No, there is.
But quite honestly, very excited that he was doing great and considering not needing them, at least at this time.
Yeah, I've got actually a similar story. This lady started coming in. She was a referral from another patient, and she started coming in just a couple weeks ago also. The typical back pain, neck pain, some neurological things going on in her head and neck, and some pretty intense knee pain. And it's always funny because, in my opinion, it's like how the body prioritizes things that get well fast. Mm-hmm. I mean, we don't have control over it. Us as doctors, we would love control over it, but we do not have control over it.
Right.
But she's doing really well. She was holding her C1, C2 adjustment. She needed a lower one today. But last week, she told me all of a sudden after the first adjustment, and she thought it was just a fluke, so she didn't even say it after the first one, but her knee pain just completely went away. And she's waiting for it to come back. Mm-hmm. Hasn't come back. And nice. She's also canceling steroid shots for her knee. And I thought that is amazing.
Yes. And that, that's just, it's fantastic to hear that. For the medical doctor out there who does all the shots and that's your bread and butter, I'm sorry. We won't take them all. Believe me.
Oh, we absolutely will. And there are some patients that might need it, to help them to just survive. And we get it. And
I heard the craziest thing from one of my long-term patients. She's been with me for a while, but her knee has been giving her grief. She got some shots to get a little bit longer. Her mother, who was suffering with Alzheimer's, had just passed away. So she was free enough to finally be able to, she'd been caregiver for her. So now she's able to take care of herself and get the surgery. I mean, with that, she knew she'd be laid up if mom was still around. So she finally did that, but the shots helped, keep her moving so she could take care of mom. And I've never heard this phrase used clinically, but apparently she had end stage osteoarthritis.
End stage.
Like I said, I've never heard of that, but basically, he says, "Yeah, we definitely needed to do this surgery and take care of this knee for you because that's how bad it was." So I don't know what end stage arthritis is, but that sounds bad.
Sounds bad.
Anything longer than that sounds like a fusion. So.
Yeah, where does it go after end stage? I mean, it's not death.
I don't know. I mean,
yeah, you hear end stage cancer. Actually, one of my patients jokes because he doesn't have back pain anymore, but he used to say he had stage 5 back cancer when his back hurt. He's a little dramatic.
Yeah, that's a little bit over the top. I would concur. But in getting on to our next topic for today, I have another patient who was hurting so bad over the weekend, and we got back late Saturday night from a trip down to Little Rock, Arkansas. That could be a story for another day. And his wife's like, David needs to get in really badly. And I'm like, okay. Because I'd seen him a couple of times. He had something land on his head at a job site. So he comes in, and sure enough, his atlas and his C3 were out of place. Only a week earlier, do I take new pictures on him, and I find that C3 out of place, and we adjust that. So that's about 10 days ago that we adjust the C3. He was in last Wednesday holding his adjustment for the first time in a very long time. Of course, Sunday, he's out, atlas and C3 fixed. They're back in on Wednesday this week, and he's holding again. And it's working in the right direction. And one of the things, and I'm going to write up a paper. You and I might have to do this jointly because if you've got enough cases, it'll be a case series is what I'm thinking. One of the things that we do differently in the Blair work than other upper cervical docs do is we really focus not only on the atlas, two parts. We look at the atlas and we look at the lower cervicals as individual pieces. So not only are we addressing these pieces a little bit different than some of the other orthogonal upper cervical techniques do, because they do address them, but just not in the same fashion. So we look at them individually and anatomically differently than those other techniques do. And sometimes that's the missing link for the patient to get better.
Yeah. So I often see C3 and sometimes C5. It's just randomly. Yeah. That's one of the ones that it could be holding someone back. Yeah.
And go ahead.
I was going to say, just this week, 3 different patients who don't normally have a C2-3 misalignment. So it could be C2 or C3, but they all were coming in with it was hard for them to turn their head. So when they turned it, and then they would get the stabbing pain in, I call it the spot, which is right where the trap kind of sits, right. If you can watching, you can see where I'm pointing, but it's pretty much right between the shoulder and the neck, kind of towards the back, but above the shoulder blade. And it's like that one. I actually, not that I like when people are hurting ever, but I like to adjust that one because it's so quick.
It can be.
They can,
be very
and
quick.
It's not all the time that's quick. Sometimes it takes a day or two, but like at least the range of motion change is pretty quick, where they can turn their heads again, and they're like, "Oh yeah, doc, I think you got it." And I was like, "Yeah, no."
And the first time that I had my C2 really go out, it was right after my sister's wedding, and I think I've told this story before. My brother and I were not horsing around. We were just going down to the pond to go swimming. Not even a crazy dive. It was very controlled. And I swam in high school, so my form is okay. I don't swim a whole lot anymore, but I walk. I'm just doing very easy breaststroke over to the sandbar, and I come on up, and I'm just locked up as if someone had taken a screwdriver between my shoulder blades. And ouch, that was uncomfortable. It took me a month before I had an old time doc say, "Oh yeah, it's this number 2 here. Let me get that for you." Which really changed my perspective on all of this. And it's funny because Dr. Drew Hall, who's now down in Sarasota, Florida, sent a patient my way who she she winters down there, but she happens to live in Springfield. So she's like, hey, yeah, my number twos needs to go back into place. She'd been to under upper cervical care under a different upper cervical technique, one of the orthospinology folks here in town. And it worked, but it didn't take it to that next level, to that last step that she needed to get her well and keep her well. And it's so curious how these people just sort of fall into our laps, for better or worse.
Now, I do think in a perfect world, if the body is working exactly like it's supposed to be, and then there's an atlas subluxation, and we move atlas, in a perfect world, from top to bottom, everything is restored.
Sure.
But I meet a lot of people who don't live in the perfect world.
I live in that perfect world, and I've yet to really figure out what that absolute place is. So it is a real trick to address these things, because in the perfect world, in the world that was only about 40, 50 years ago, we did not have nearly the severity of injuries and accidents that we have available to us now. I mean, we have a smorgasbord of ways to hurt ourselves. And the thought in my head, going back to talking about whiplash and concussions, is that we get this weird buckling of the joints along the way, where one will go one direction forward and the other one will go backwards, and then and it goes back, and it goes through this back and forth, forward, backwards, which means left, right, left, right, left, right. Ideally, in a simple injury situation, everything is going to go either to the right or to the left. You're going to be cocked around like this or this, opposed to some weird back and forth that actually causes things to buckle in odd places. And I think that's more what we're dealing with modern injuries, modern accidents. Yay for modernity. So.
Yeah. And when we talk about modern injuries and modern accidents, I mean, maybe it's even longer than 40 or 50 years, but like high-speed collisions, a couple things that are going better is that we used to have the seat belts, and then the seat ended here. And people's heads would just whip all the way back over the seat. We've got headrests. People sometimes think headrests are there for comfort. No, they're here to stop your head from whipping all the way back. You can still get a whiplash even with them. Yeah. But it's better than, and that's the other thing, is making sure your headrest is actually up high enough.
Above your head.
Yes.
And you and I have a problem, because we, even in larger trucks, larger vehicles, it still only gets to, maybe right here, the
so
back
pretty much, if you're tall, you need it all as far up as it goes.
Yeah.
And because it's, again, not for your comfort, it's to stop your head from whipping over it. And tendency is, if you get hit hard enough, you'll lift up in your seat and still go somewhat back. Yeah. Do your best to make it sure it's high enough, and it's okay.
And the other thing to think about is the way cars are built today compared to 40 years ago. This goes back to my time in automotive plants and engineering. We used to have bumpers on cars. We don't have bumpers on cars anymore. Everything is that plastic fascia. It is foam filled. There is a piece of foam back there, or behind that you never see. In fact, you won't see that piece of foam if you're in an accident. They'll see it at the auto body shop. And that piece of foam, if they pull that off and that piece of foam disintegrates, which is what it's supposed to do, they have to replace that piece of foam before they put your car back together. With an old style bumper, there was actually a cylinder that also needed to be replaced. It was designed to sort of explode, is what it would do, but you would hit, and that cylinder would sort of pop it out of place to deflect the energy that was coming into the spot. Except those things were really expensive to replace. So that's why they got rid of them, because there says, well, there's got to be a more cost-effective way for a collision. Well, at what cost? Because it's not the cost of of fixing the car, is now the cost of damage to your tissue in your body, which is why we see these more problematic. it's, there's lots of concerns. There are a lot of things. And consequently, we see more reverse curves instead of seeing that nice C-shaped curve. We see an S-shaped curve because, again, you've got this sort of back and forth motion.
Yeah, your neck is supposed to have, like, I call it a banana in your neck, and it faces, circular part of the banana faces forward. That's what it's supposed to do.
The curve
and what happens, it straightens out. So we need it curved.
Yeah.
And that curve, although again, my goal for anyone isn't to get the curve back. And there's some chiropractic techniques that's their goal, is to curve back.
Right.
I just want structural integrity, and I want your body to be functioning as good as possible. And if that is with a curve, great, your body will do it. And if it's without a curve, I'm okay with that too.
Exactly.
I do like seeing curves. I think it's great, but again, I'm not going to force a curve to come into somebody's body.
But this comes back to those lower cervicals that need to be addressed, sometimes individually, because sometimes the atlas will bring that all together and the curve comes back overnight. And in fact, I've seen a negative degree. I've seen a negative forward positioning reverse back to a normal curve in young children and some adults. But people that have been in car accidents, man, we're going to be working on that just forever, trying to get those joints to work back to where they're supposed to be.
Speaking of injuries that I'm seeing this week from things, I've noticed some interesting ones. Right now we're in spring. This will probably come out in summer, but we're in spring and gardening injuries. About 12 of those. People overdoing it in the garden and coming in and just annihilating either back, neck, or both. And then the other thing is pickleball. Do you guys have pickleball there?
They do. I have yet to play. I have several patients who swear by it.
They love it. It will keep us in business. So guys, keep playing pickleball when you are a little old and you're maybe haven't worked out in a long time, and then you go play pickleball and you just give it your all. Oh my gosh. I'm laughing because I'm laughing with them because they know they're doing it to themselves.
Right.
But my goodness, we are seeing some pickleball injuries. So it sounds like I've only seen it played. I've never played it either, but it looks fun.
Yeah, it's but with any of these sports and with anyone getting back into activity after, not that we had a long winter. We had a very short, mild winter.
And a long pollen season.
And we're coming right into summer. Thankfully, we're getting a couple reprieve days with the rain and the cold. But it is definitely coming right on in. And it's going to be a hot one. So.
I don't want to hear it. I don't like it. So I kind of want to talk about being a business owner. I have this thought process because there might be some people out there who are maybe thinking about being chiropractors or being in the service industry. And I just have this couple things that come to my mind of when you're renting a location, because you rent also, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So I rent in a location that's right next to a restaurant on one side. It's a sushi restaurant, yum. Mm-hmm. And a dry cleaner on the other side, but they don't do actual dry cleaning there. That's just a place where they take it out and dry clean and bring it back, because I don't want dry cleaners right next to me because there's lots of chemicals again, but it's just a place for people to pick up and drop off.
And I think that's why they've done it in this fashion, because the EPA rules are probably so ridiculous that they said, we have one large warehouse building that we have to worry about, and these are the drop-off places. And I am so amazed at how fast they do all of that. Because I will drop off stuff, I've got a place like that just down the road, and I know they do the same sort of thing. And yet I've got my dry cleaning back in the afternoon if I drop it off by the right time.
They're fast.
They're very fast.
Yeah. And then, last thing is then right next to them is a Subway, which obviously is one of the most healthy places you can eat. No, I'm just being facetious. So
where the bread has more sugar.
It does. It does.
It is so, anyways, we won't go there.
So everyone knows what the smell of Subway is, correct? You smell it. Like you're going through an airport, there's a Subway coming up. Just like a Cinnabon. You know what Subway smells like. You walk into Subway, you're like, definitely Subway. Well, what happens when Subway's fan breaks? You know what else smells like Subway? My office. For the past month. Every time they're baking bread, it smells like Subway in here.
Oh my goodness.
It's not good. It's not good. I could tell when they were baking the cookies. I even knew when they were cutting the onions.
Wow. Wow.
So their fan did just get fixed yesterday. So that's why it's at the top of my mind. But what I wanted to talk about is why all of these little tiny things that matter when you're starting a business, and it seems so overwhelming. But what's really cool is that you just deal with the stuff when it comes up. So if somebody out there is like wanting to start a business, just know you don't have to figure all of it out.
No.
All at once. And that's really overwhelming when you try to think of it like that. But it's one step at a time. And that's the same thing of building a chiropractic practice is you meet one patient at a time. And we change the lives of these people one at a time. And what's so cool is that's how any service or service type business, whether a CPA or whatever, works. But I think we have the coolest job though, out of all of them.
It's pretty good. It's pretty good. And equivocal, I'm switching, I'm finally fed up with my EHR system, my electronic health records.
So that's the computers that the doctor would use to take the records and
so
like
all
the
my
servers
notes,
and
all my billing stuff, all my talking back and forth with patients, I haven't liked it for a while.
Yeah.
And I finally said, all right, I'm motivated. I'm going to make this stuff happen. But to your point,
hard.
There's going to be a lot of work. And I know it's going to take the next 2 months for me to get everything put together and
it sucks.
Switched. However, like you said, it's a pain point of understanding that you don't have to know how to do everything right off the bat. You don't have to do everything immediately. And it's funny because I talked to another colleague of ours. She doesn't do upper cervical, but she's a patient, and she was making the same comment. She's like, I'm done with that company because she's got this, same billing system I've got. And we're both going to the same new system.
Nice.
Because we're like that. This is, we're tired of this. We've heard so many good things about the other system, and it's just time. It is. And sometimes you just say, all right, I'm going to do a little bit today, and I'm going to do a little bit tomorrow, and the next day, and the next day, and the next day. And before you know it, it's done. Because the other side of this, and this applies to not just business, everything in life. The best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago, right?
Yes.
The next best time is today. And you just have to sit down, and if there's a thing to be done, you've got to start chiseling away at it, especially if it's giving you pain. And if it's giving you pain points that is preventing you or your staff, in my case, my spouse, my wife helps me out with some of the billing, and I see her fretting over this thing every month that she has to do pretty much by hand. She's got a system down, but if I can hit a button,
and have it
automatically emails to the patient.
And it might just like,
and I don't even have
zip
to
out. Yeah,
it
absolutely.
emails out. I don't have to worry about the printing. We may still print for some, but I don't have to do all the extra
work. As in
work
like the Amish people.
No, well, thankfully the Amish people would be the exception because they don't have insurance. So, that would be the difference there. But again, it's all the little things, and it's just like getting under care.
Yes.
I don't want to start because once I start, I'm not going to stop. And
I'm afraid to meet a new doctor because you've had bad experiences with doctors in the past.
Exactly. Yep. In fact, I had a potential patient come in here a couple weeks ago, and he's like, "Doc, you're doing all the right things." He saw how I was dressed. He says, "I like how you're dressed. I like the way you talk. I like the way you're saying things. I don't want to pay for pay for an exam and X-ray because right now." And it's probably by the time this comes out, it'll probably be over $400. But certainly, in that anywhere between the $300 to $500 range is a very common price for a new exam and X-ray in an upper cervical office. Yeah, that's a price tag. but you're paying for the expertise, and he wasn't comfortable
it's
with
a
that.
lot of work.
It is. We put a lot of work and effort into figuring out exactly. We make it look effortless, mind you.
We do.
You put a lot of work and effort into making sure we figure out exactly what each segment is, how each segment is built, how they are out of place, how we're going to put them back into place, and
knowing what not to touch too.
Exactly.
Like what's good. How yeah, absolutely.
So to understand that about a patient, and he's like, Doc, I've been under care for, ever. I like what you're doing. You're doing, you're in that Palmer method family, and that might mean something different. So he wasn't comfortable with what I was recommending to start. And I said, I've got somebody for you. And if you don't like him and you don't get better with him, he's going to send you right back over here because he understands what I do and how it's different.
Yeah.
And that's, these are all the little pieces, but you got to start, you got to figure out, hey, is this the right path?
And then valuing yourself too. Like if your transmission in your car goes out and you need your car to get to work, right?
Yep.
You're going to pay the $2,000 or whatever. You're going to find a way to pay it, right? It sucks. I wish you didn't have to spend it, but you're going to find a way because you value your car to get to work. Now, how much more important is your body than your car? Infinitely.
Exactly.
Yet because I do think insurance has ruined a lot of people. People just think insurance should be like pay for everything. And I wish it did. That would be amazing.
Yeah.
But it doesn't. And especially doctors, not just upper cervical doctors, but doctors that
medical doctors are getting out of the game.
Tons of doctors are. And because the insurance companies are only out for themselves and not out for you, the consumer, and value yourself as much as you do a car transmission, or if you needed a tooth taken out and you're not going to have dental insurance that pays for that fake implant. That's another $3,000 right there.
Yep.
But because you want to smile and not have people stare at you, you're going to pay that $3,000 for an implant. And could you survive without it? Absolutely. And you could survive without your car. But I'm going to tell you, if your nervous system and body is breaking down, you're going to be so much happier that you spent that money now versus waiting till when it's time for surgery. And you're never the same after surgery. It's never exactly what you want it to be. It might be better than where you are right this moment, but it's not, it doesn't get you well. It cuts out the pieces that are broken.
Right. Absolutely. And one of the things that quality of life, you don't need a car. You can get around on the bus system. You can bike. But what is your quality of life and what are you capable of doing or not? Who was it? Somebody came in today and said, Doc, I hate it when I can't think straight. Get my head on straight. And that's what we did. And it's funny because I know we're close in price tags as far as our rates go. Yeah, it might be somewhere in that $2,000 to $2,500 for an initial plan of care to make sure you're stable, and then it's less.
Yeah, it's less after the initial phase of care for anything like a chiropractic. Hopefully, most chiropractic offices, but definitely mine and yours is more expensive. And honestly, once I hear about what people are spending on dental care, I keep going, I need to raise my prices. I'm not going to based on that. I want my care. I want the care that I'm offering to people to be accessible to lots of people.
Yes.
But I also need to keep the lights on in my office.
We have our own expenses and our own bills, and we won't talk about inflation because I don't understand that. And
it's really bad right now. And that's what hurts me, is because people's paychecks aren't going up, but all the prices are going up.
Yes.
And I haven't raised my prices yet.
Right.
But I probably should.
So let's ask two questions. One, is upper cervical care better than regular chiropractic care? I've got a study for this. And are there any risks associated with upper cervical? So let's hit this research paper and then wrap up for the night. So
I'm going to answer because you're looking that up right now.
Yep.
Do I think upper cervical care is better? I think it's different.
I think I would absolutely agree that it's different.
I think I almost put it on a different level than chiropractic care. So conventional chiropractic care, although amazing, and some of my best friends in the whole world are conventional chiropractors, they know what I do is, it's almost like I don't want to call upper cervical chiropractic because it is chiropractic. I know, but it's just different.
It is. And it's a step. It is a different step of what chiropractic was developing to, and still is. One of the more advanced ways to address the human frame and the anatomy of our bodies. What are the risks from chiropractic? And back in 2011, Dr. Kirk Erickson and a couple of others did this study where they actually studied, they collected data from over 1,000 patients. I think we had 88 doctors or so in the study.
Which is a pretty large study because considering upper cervical is a smaller community. And I do get this question from people is like, can chiropractic cause a stroke? Can this hurt me? And I love answering it because of this. Because there's multiple, but this study especially.
This study in particular really drives this home because this first step here is we've got the symptomatic reactions being either intense or serious, right? So what do these mean? So a symptomatic reaction is a new symptom or a worsening of an existing symptom by more than 30% following UCCC as an upper cervical adjustment. Intense, they defined intense by anything above 8. And anything that was a serious, as you mentioned, stroke here a moment ago, a serious adverse event is a life-threatening reaction or hospitalization. So again, we had 83 doctors in this study, over 1,000 cases. Again, this was only upper cervical. In fact, most of these, as we were talking about earlier, were Atlas or Axis combined or combined. So we had 338 patients out of the 1,000 that had that met that symptomatic reaction. So there had an increase. Only 5%, so 56 patients, had an intense change. And earlier studies that were done by a Rubenstein, that he used adverse event, but this was general chiropractic that most people are familiar with. Unfortunately, I'm going to use the term rack'em crack'em. But they would have had a 56% as compared to 13%.
You can get sore. Sometimes really sore after, especially a first chiropractic. And we explain that to a patient, your first upper cervical adjustment. I get excited when you get sore because I know your body is responding. It's awesome.
Exactly. And so basically the difference is 31% had a change for the word, an increase in pain and discomfort. Whereas with with again, what most people think of as twisting and popping,
what you see on TikTok and YouTube.
Exactly. That was at 56%. So half of that population had that. And
wow, that's a lot. I wouldn't have thought that.
And then for the intense, the over 8, they would have had almost 3 times. So so fit 13% versus 5%, which is great. No serious adverse events occurred in all this 1,000 patients, and of the 83 doctors, many who had been practicing 20, 30, 40, 50 years, over 5 million career adjustments without ever having a serious adverse event. Not to say that it can't happen, not to say that it will never happen.
Absolutely.
But that's a lot of doctors.
That's a lot of doctors
and a lot of patients and a lot of adjustments. Again, here's the upside. We don't have to adjust. We don't tend to adjust every time you come on in, and we can spread those visits out further and further. So if there is a risk, however small, it is even smaller when minuscule. We don't need to do it as much.
Yeah. And one of the risks people talk about stroke and chiropractic is when we twist the neck, not we, but doctors of chiropractic twist the neck, there's an artery called the vertebral artery that has the potential that usually the patient already has a event in progress and has neck pain because of it. And then the doctor twists their neck and makes it worse, which is not great. and a stroke can occur, and it's awful. And we never, ever want anything like that to happen. What's cool about almost all of the upper cervical techniques that are done is there is no twisting of the neck.
Correct.
So even if somebody did have an event in progress, God forbid, this wouldn't make it worse, but hopefully we would see the warning signs and send them to the ER.
Yes.
Beforehand.
But for the for the symptoms, the common reactions that people were having, tiredness, fatigue was the highest.
Yes,
some
that's a big
radiating
one.
pain, some shooting pain. Neck pain was up there at 5%. Dizziness was just under 5%. And I see that one more commonly because I think what's happening is we're actually increasing blood flow to the brain. Excuse me.
Yeah.
All that's happening. And that could be part of the headache as well, associated with dehydration. So,
and I think I see tiredness and fatigue more than 10% after a first adjustment. We warn people about it.
Definitely.
Maybe they just don't complain about it or they just go to sleep. But I also hear people having the best night's sleep of their lives after their first adjustment. And I love that.
That is very common. So, and patient satisfaction in this survey, this was a 2-week survey. 9 out of 10.
That's awesome.
It is.
That is awesome.
Yeah. And that same Rubenstein study, they had a smaller group, but still a large and good group, 77%.
Which is still great.
It's still great.
That's still fantastic. That's why I'm saying is like these doctors are doing really good work. But why we chose this is, first of all, if you've listened to previous podcasts, we've had personal experiences with why we chose this. But I expect people when they come into the office, if they have a subluxation, they have a misalignment that is causing nervous system stress, I expect them to get well. I am surprised if they're not getting well. And I'm trying to figure out why.
I've got one who's not responding as well as possible.
Yeah.
And we're coming into that point where she's still having problems. I changed some stuff up today, and we're going to see where she's at next week. Quite honestly, if next week she isn't doing at least some change, because she's like, we've been doing this for 3 or 4 months now, doc, I'm still not seeing stuff. And I'm like, no, we've got to reevaluate stuff. And I might say, all right, we're going to take the month of June off. You go play a bunch of golf. Come back in July, and then we're just going to double check stuff. And I want to see how you're doing. And she plays golf, and maybe, newer to golf, but maybe she'll notice that her golf game gets worse or something else that has creeped back in, because sometimes the change is so subtle,
so gradual,
you don't even notice it.
Exactly. And that is sometimes it's like a switch. Very more likely it's just a subtle change over time. And then when we reevaluate and we're like, well, you had this. Oh yeah, I forgot I had that. And then you had this and I forgot I had that, and that I love that. I love when you forget about it.
Yeah.
That's great.
And then I've just got this last table here that we're going to go over just very briefly. Most of these people were coming in with some sort of neck pain, dysfunction. So a good, number 2, just almost coming right in behind it was low back pain. And we see, good results with that. And then number 3 was headaches, some mid back pain, some upper and lower arms and legs. Fibromyalgia was a small component. Again, this was not necessarily, this was a general, as patients walked into the office.
Yeah. Most patients are going to have neck pain and back pain. That's
and that's what's drawing people into any chiropractic office. Though we do see a lot of fibromyalgia.
Yes.
This equilibrium would be a balance.
Like Meniere's
type things, vertigo. TMJ, common.
Yeah, we see a lot of those.
Yep. Facial pain would be that trigeminal neuralgia we talked about a couple episodes ago. Blood pressure. Talk about the blood pressure study another time. I want to find the second follow-up study.
He wanted to talk about it today, and I said, I don't want to talk about it because it sounds boring.
It sort of is, but it's important.
It's really important, but I didn't want to talk about it today.
Yeah, that's fine. Anyways, a couple other things. There's only 6 people came in for wellness care, probably because they were
a family member of another
friend
patient.
or family member who's already a patient. So, any case, so that's that is what that is, and
the breakdown.
It's just really great to know that
91% in this study, 91% of patients were happy,
highly satisfied.
Highly satisfied with their chiropractic care in an upper cervical office. And that's what we feel, that we feel the love. We love the love. Yeah. It's incredible. And I want that for whoever's listening out there. I want that for you. Find an upper cervical doctor, get checked. Yep. I mean, worst case scenario, they'll check you and say you're fine. But what if there is something going on and you can live a healthier, better life by getting your neck checked?
Exactly.
Do it. Invest in yourself. You are more important than a transmission.
Definitely very much better than more important than a transmission.
Mm-hmm.
So, all righty. Well, I think that will wrap it up for this evening. That's a better place than we did the other day where we went depressing.
And let's talk about sad stuff. No, I'm just kidding.
No. We're going to wrap up. Dr. Bagley, where can they find you?
You can find me in St. Louis, Missouri. We're on the west side, and we are at Precision Chiropractic, STL.com.
And I am in Springfield, Illinois at KeystoneChiroSPI.com. And you can find us on all the socials.
Yes.
Just search for that.
Click around, you'll find us.
Exactly. I think that is it. Make sure you like, subscribe, share with your friends, so that maybe they'll hear this and they'll be like, I need to go find one of these upper cervical doctors. If you can't find, if you're not in our locales, let us know and we will help you find somebody in your locale.
Yes, we will. Happy to.
So, all right, folks, you have a wonderful evening, day, night, and we will see you for another episode of The Blonde and the Bald.
Take care.
That's all for today's episode of The Blonde and the Bald. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. If you enjoyed today's show with Drs. Bagley and Schurger, remember, don't give up and just live with the pain. Come back next week and get more answers and solutions. Visit our websites at KeystoneChiroSPI.com and PrecisionChiropracticSTL.com for more info, and catch all the episodes of The Blonde and the Bald.